Walton council members held a public hearing and passed a law on dog impoundment for safekeeping Monday, November 13th.
My name is Amy Young. My address is 29521 State Highway 10, Walton, New York. I do have some questions concerning the proposed changes for the impoundment of the dogs. My first question is will the dog officer be getting a raise for these added duties? No. So his salary will stay the same. Okay. How much money will the town receive per assist?
How much money will
the town receive per assist that the dog warden, like if he goes and picks up a dog?
We don't receive any.
We don't receive any.
I think the fees are for going up to the shelter, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so that brings me to my other question. What is the $25 administrative fee that was mentioned in the Walton Reporter article?
That's a fee assessed, like a lot of other administrative fees, for that additional duty for the code officer. It does not go to the code officer himself.
Okay.
It goes right into the general fund.
Okay, so I guess that answers my next question, which was, what will it be used for once it's collected?
Goes into the general fund.
Now, given that it's concerning a dog, wouldn't it be beneficial for that $25 to get donated back to the shelter?
Well, that would be at the discretion of the.
Is that something that is, something that could be put on the table, which, if he's going to assist a dog and the shelter is, he has to take it up to the shelter.
The town already gets charged a $40 fee per dog that's taken to the shelter, so that will offset that cost.
Okay.
By 25, still a deficit of 15.
So now how did this proposal come about?
The car accident. And there was
Oh,
a
the
dog
one at the bottom of my driveway, the
that-
one where
there
I
was
took
a
the
dog
dog
that
home.
didn't get, if you hadn't stepped up, where was that dog going? So really, the point of this was to protect dogs, because they're in a situation that they did not put themselves in, obviously. They're in a car accident or something like that, or they're arrested, somebody has to take control of that, and if the dog warden can't just take that dog without a law, and this way, the 7 days is because there has to be a number of days, number one, but then, say you took that dog and just didn't give it back. You could have done that. You wouldn't have done that, but there are people who would. And this protects the owner and the dog, So if somebody's in the hospital for more than 7 days, somebody is going to come up and say, I'm family, I'm this, I'm that. The 7 days is, a number has to be in there, is what I can say to you, so. I know that people were saying, oh my God, they were critical, whatever. That's not really.
There was no formula for our dog control officer to respond to those calls officially on books. This is putting it officially on books, local law, for him to have the ability to assist law enforcement to take care of dogs, because he has to work under the Ag and Markets law. If there's a situation like this where the law enforcement has to take care of the dogs, it's really not under his realm, but it gives him the authority to do that, and with liability and all that. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, in the article, the dog officer had used the term, if the associated fees aren't paid within 7 days, the town will be authorized to release ownership of the dog. What is ownership? I mean, when I think of ownership, I think of, okay, he assists and takes a dog, I'm not understanding that.
I'm not following that either. I don't know where that came
I'm looking
from.
for
No,
the 7 days in there.
The town no longer has jurisdiction over that dog after 7 days. The shelter has jurisdiction that we contract with.
Because it goes on to say the town will be authorized to release ownership of the dog for adoption or euthanasia.
No,
Release it to the shelter.
It's released to the shelter.
We don't,
That's what it is.
it's released to the shelter.
And then it falls under their discretion. Yes.
Okay, I was a little confused on that because it made it sound like once he picked up a dog, that was his dog, and you know,
No,
he
no,
would
not the
he would
case.
give the he would be able to say, okay, you know, it can be adopted out or, you know, euthanized, and I was very confused on that.
No, that's not the case at all.
You know, but I mean, you could
Yes.
hopefully understand why, you know, there was those feelings.
I didn't take it that way, but I already knew it wasn't that. But yeah, no, it's just that ownership has to go to somebody. If no one has stepped up in 7 days since an accident or arrest saying, this is my dog, this is my brother's dog, this is, you know, something. And then in 7 days, hopefully, locally, that would happen. But
Now, whose job will it be to contact family or friends concerning the dog that was taken?
Well, if it's done under law enforcement, that I presume it would be the law enforcement. Because-
It's not gonna be the town.
Right, it's not the town,
because it's
because
an accident or
this
arrest.
is Article 20, it would be under Article 23 or 26. Rusty works under Article 7.
Yeah, I had a
Yes.
similar situation. My mother and her husband were involved in a car accident up in Auburn, New York, and they had their dog with them. And the state police called me and told me, we have the dog, somebody has to come get it. Luckily, there was somebody like on an emergency squad that said, I'll take the dog, you know, here's my number, get a hold of me. Matter of fact, she even kept it overnight for us, and we went and picked it up the next day. So I don't know what we would have done if nobody wanted to take the dog, because they're probably in the same situation. They probably, their dog control officer didn't have the authority to just go take it. So
Right, if it's not Article 23 or 26.
26.
If it's not Article 7, which Rusty works under, it'd be Article 26. And until we adopt this local law, he really has no authority under that.
Okay, so, up to this point, how many assists has he done for the sheriff's department, state police?
We can't answer that here.
Oh, okay.
We can answer it at a different time.
Oh, okay, I just wasn't
I don't,
sure.
we don't have all the files in front of us.
Okay, I think that's it, but I do have one last thing I wanna say, you know, it's, when it comes to, you know, you could meet somebody who's had the worst day of their life, you know, traveling
Now,
to New York.
I want to keep you on the local
No,
law.
yeah, no, yeah.
Is this referencing
yes,
the
this is
local law?
Yes, this
Okay.
is concerning the law. You know, you could meet somebody who's having the worst day of their life, you know, whatever. I think that there needs to be some thought going into how many days that the people have to redeem their dog from the shelter. You know, if you have somebody here from out west and their family can't get here in 7 days, you know, I think there needs to be some leniency on the amount of days that somebody has. And I don't know if that's through you guys, I don't know if it's through the shelter.
We have to put a date, a timeline on it. If that's the case, they would have to communicate directly with the shelter and let the family in the shelter work those logistics out.
And I
you
think
know.
the shelter would do that. I mean, I've known them
Yeah.
to do things like
Oh,
that
of
for
course.
people who were sick and stuff.
What's the rate of euthanasia for this
I don't
particular
think the shelter
shelter?
kills.
No,
them.
they do, they
They
do.
do? I
Delhi,
think they do.
Delhi will put down an aggressive dog or a
Well-
feral cat. But my point with that is that I know there are dogs who are great with their owners, but the minute they get away from their owners, they are very standoffish
Well,
and can
and
be
if they've been in
considered
an
aggressive.
accident, it's traumatic. I
It
mean, you
is,
don't know.
it is traumatic. You know, I took the little pitty that was in the accident down at the bottom of my hill. She was very traumatized. I sat with her for an hour before I took her home to make sure she was okay and to get her to calm
The
down.
point is that the rate is very low.
Right.
They,
It's not gonna be
they,
what
they will
usually
not put a animal to sleep there unless there is an anonymous reason for it. I mean,
Isn't there like, I mean,
So-
the 7 days is like, cause we pay a shelter fee and then we can't just say, well, there you go, shelter, now it's your, you know what I mean? So I think that's the reason for the terminology, that it can be now released for adoption or euthanasia. You know, the shelter is gonna go for adoption in most cases unless there's circumstances and stuff.
We felt
Knowing
7
the
days
shelter, I
is
don't see 7
a
days.
reasonable,
Yes.
a week is a
A
reasonable
week is a
time. I
reasonable
mean,
time that
you
you
could-
have.
you know,
And that doesn't mean they're gonna put the dog down at the end
Right,
of 7
yeah,
days.
that's-
No,
yeah.
By no means,
no,
so.
I understand that, I just think that, you know, it's, for a lot of people, their dogs are their kids, their dogs are their families, you know, anybody who has animals, I think would agree that they're animals.
But that's exactly why because that came up, saying, okay, what happened to that dog now? The dog's just wandering around the streets because nobody can take it, so that's the reason we even looked at this.
Yeah.
So, it really was.
Because we realized there was no law
Right.
on the books.
That was a fun experience. And she turned around and did it again,
This,
but
this,
that's another
this,
story.
this law solely benefits the animal,
Okay,
so.
all right, well, thank you all for answering my
Thank
questions.
you.
Thank you.
Laura,
Any other
you
comments?
good? You sure?
No, I mean, she just, the main thing was the dog's gonna be surrendered over to the shelter. I don't agree with the 7 days, but
But you understand the reasoning of the 7 days now.
I was very upset when this situation happened and she had the dog. I was upset because I said, well, where is the dog warden? Because the dog could be hurt, and he was. And he was.
But he didn't
broke-
have authority to take it, is what the point is.
Right, and
without
I
this.
agree with this. I do not agree with 7 days letting that dog go out for adoption. I do, absolutely do, because there's gonna be one person that's gonna slip through this and they're gonna lose their dog. It's just not enough time. It could be somebody driving through. We don't know everybody's story. They have nobody. We don't know.
No, but we can't write a law to everybody's story either. So I mean,
No.
in 7 days,
Who made the
someone,
7 days?
unless they have nobody in the world,
Does it cost
in
more
7
for
days,
14
they probably will have contacted somebody. Somebody
Right.
would have contacted them, and they'll say, "My dog was with me. Where is
14
it?"
days?
Huh?
What's wrong with 14 days?
Fees for the shelter,
And how much is that?
$40 a day.
a day.
$40, so much. You're worried about $40 a day for 2 weeks when somebody could lose their dog?
Well, you might not worry about that, Laura, but I gotta tell you, a lot of taxpayers would worry about that for
Well,
7
you
days.
also
Never
have
mind 14.
millions and millions of dollars that you're budgeting, and
But
we're
the
talking
thing
about a
is,
little bit amount of money here.
the 7 days, they're not gonna automatically, somebody's gonna within 7 days, somebody's gonna contact them and say, you know, look, I can't make it there, it's gonna be 14 days or whatever, and I'm sure the shelter's
And when
willing.
the first person that this happens to, when I find out,
Oh, I'm sure I'll hear from you.
So just,
Yeah, I think we're getting off the
Just
subject.
no, I mean,
Just
I'm
out of curiosity.
saying, why can't it be 14 days? Why?
Can I
Because
ask,
you're worried
can I
about
ask one more question,
$40
going
a
on,
day?
going on what he just said? If you know, if it is 14 days, if somebody gets in contact with the shelter and says, you know, on the 6th day and says, hey, it's gonna be another week before I can get there, who incurs the charges for that additional week? Is it the shelter or the owner?
The shelter, if
Or the town or the owner?
the
sorry.
shelter, because at 7 days, we put them over to the shelter, because we're not in the dog business. We're just keeping
So
them
they
there safe.
don't, so they don't charge you for those extra 7 days?
We're not gonna pay for them, that's why we're
Oh,
turning
does
the
the
dog
town have
over.
an allotment set aside for anything to do with dogs?
Any dog that gets taken up there, we can
Like
charge.
you have a budget that you keep, like a certain amount of money?
I mean,
And
yeah,
how much is it?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, any dog that gets taken in, and we take to the shelter.
For animal control.
Yeah,
It's 7
we're- it's
days
7
that the
days
town
and-
turns the dog over to the shelter.
Yeah.
Whether they keep the dog or
Give a
not
budget.
is up to
Like a
them.
budget. For
I don't know the answer to
emergency
that.
budget, like a budget, money put aside for seizing a dog or,
I don't think there's a
There is
specific line
there is
item
no
for-
budget for a
in the
seasonal
budget for
dog.
that.
The budget is for the dog control officer, and then there's a contractual for expenses for the dog.
and how much is that?
There is a contract with the shelter for the
No, I
$40.
know.
That's what we're
No, I
talking.
understand.
$1,200.
$1,200.
okay, if there's no other questions, I will close this public hearing. Local Law 1, 2023, the impoundment of dogs for safekeeping. Any further discussion? Okay,
I
Rhonda,
think it's fine.
yeah, Rhonda, please call the roll.
I need a motion.
I'll make it.
We got a motion
Second it.
and a second. Rhonda, call
This
the
is
roll.
maintaining the
Councilman
7 days.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Councilman McGovern,
Aye.
Councilwoman Wood,
Aye.
Councilman Rodriguez Bencourt,
Aye.
Supervisor Sedek.
Aye. Okay, that is carried.
To subscribe or advertise, call 607-464-4009.